This week, I got to chat with my friend Victoria. She is so wonderful. I really enjoy her, and I'm so happy to share her with you. We chit chatted about relationships starting in not the most conventional way, and how that if you just learn from that situation and grow from it, instead of taking on maybe shame that could come with it or anything negative with it, if you grow from it and if you learn from it and you move forward and past it, how the other side can be just so rewarding. So let's dive in. Let's take a listen to our conversation this week. Hi, Victoria. Oh my gosh, thank you
Good morning.
good morning. Thank you so much for being on the podcast and willing to share your stories and where you are in your life and just talk about dating.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. So, okay, I know we touched upon this a little bit before previously, you and I had talked about, but your blog, I want to discuss your blog. So let's start with that.
So several years ago, I started blogging. I think the intention necessarily wasn't dating, but at the time I was single. It's called Humorous Humanitarian. I'm born August 27th, which happens to be Mother Teresa and Pee Wee Herman's birthday. So I figured Humorous Humanitarian was fitting, and I feel like I have a lot of those characteristics. So when I was 30 years old, I started doing random acts of kindness on my birthday throughout the community. So I did 30 random acts of kindness on my 30th birthday. And I did that until I was about 34. So yes, so I would just blog about, what I was doing in my life. I also used to drive a Ford Explorer, and there's a big, window in those vehicles. And oftentimes I'm on the road and I have my best ideas when I'm driving. And, so I used to write inspirational messages on the back of my car window. So I would blog about that as well. And so, yeah, and I was single during that time too. And I would share my dating stories. So it was just kind of what was going on in my life at the time.
Yeah, wow. That's so beautiful. It's so uplifting to the world of doing that.
I'm a believer. I love Jesus, and I want to be the, exemplifying his love and light. And so I just, it's all glory to him, and I'm just hoping to do his work. So
That's so beautiful. I love it. I love it. So, okay, so let's talk about where you're at right now with dating and your status. So then we can kind of just get a little background. So
I
tell me.
am Yes, I am currently single. I'm on Facebook dating, and I'm on a Christian website called Upward. But to be honest with you, I haven't had much success on either side. But I'm hopeful, and I'm a happy person, and I've always said I'd be happy in relationship, or I'm happy, single as well. So whatever God has for me, I'm just trying to stay open.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so wonderful. Facebook dating. I know that's newer. I have not tried it out. How is that? What is it? What's your experience with it? I guess. Let's just
Yeah. So to be honest with you, I haven't actually met anyone physically in person through the Facebook dating app. And as far as the Upward app, I've only met one person. A lot of people that I find myself to be connecting with are not local. They're, in Orlando, or they're on the west coast of Florida, so if God has Romeo in Canada, then so be it. But, I think this is a fair and honest statement about South Florida. I think it's a tough dating market, and there's a little bit of shallowness and insensitivity and a lot of beautiful people. So there's a lot of competition, and, I'm not so sure that maybe I stand out. And, I'm not like self-loathing or trying to sound negative or anything, but it's rough out there. So yeah, so I'm not surprised that I'm connecting with people that are not necessarily local. I just feel like the values in different areas are just different. So
That's so interesting. You're not the first person that has said to me that dating in South Florida is difficult and it's very different than anywhere else.
yes, and you would think that we have, the melting pot of everyone from everywhere, that it would be broad and lots of options. And But yeah, it's just, again, I think I chalk it up to just the values, so I'm looking for something specific, and in the world we live in today, it's not impossible, but it's just not an easy find.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how we're in this very unique time in history where things are changing at a rapid pace, and what our values and things that we were used to and accustomed to for so long, all of a sudden are like, we're in this like tornado, right? Like the cyclone of what's happening and change. I was discussing this with somebody else the other day, and I thought this was an interesting topic, but women used to take men's last names, right? That's still most of the tradition. 99%, right? Of people are still doing that. But there is this change now that's happening where women are either keeping their last name. And that used to happen too, but more women are starting to either keep their last name, or they're doing this hyphenation or a combined of names or something like that. And back, years ago, whatever, when this like whole marriage thing really started, thousands and thousands of years ago, millions. Anyways, so it was, you would sell the women, or, there'd be a dowry involved or some sort of something, transaction would happen, and then you would belong to the man's family. But now, since women are becoming more independent and more on their own, it's changing a little bit. So I guess, what's your thoughts on the whole changing of the last name? What's your take on this?
Yeah, again, going back to my core beliefs and everything. God created man, and God said man shouldn't be alone and he should have a helper. So I think that equal partnership is a beautiful concept. And I look, what is the statistic? 1 out of 2 marriages fail. It's a shame. And I feel like, again, going back to what you were saying about the fast-paced tornado, like, it's just, people are, so, we have a computer in our hand at all times. And, in the work I do in the medical field, I've spoken to my colleagues, and I'm like, we're not serving cheeseburgers, we're saving lives. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's not instant gratification, we're not microwaves. People need to be a little bit more patient and graceful with each other. So in marriage, I feel like people are very quick to give up and everything. So I think that's a value. Like, they don't want to work hard. We just have these expectations. But I do think it is an equal partnership. And I think that, God made men and women very differently. They both have strengths that can benefit one another. So I'd be happy to, take my spouse's last name. It's tradition, and, I believe in it. So, I'm good with it.
Yeah. No, I've never really thought of otherwise, because it's also tradition. It's just what you do. And I like that unity of coming together, right? But then you think of that unity and you're like, okay, well, shouldn't it be like, I guess, both last names or whatever? You start to have these thoughts a little bit. For kicks and giggles and discussion's sake, right? It's very interesting how it's hard. I'm more traditional, I would say. And so I don't know, it's opening up my eyes a little bit more, which isn't that what, like, I guess what we're doing? We're just growing and learning and evolving.
Yes. Well, my first name has 8 letters. My last name has 9. My parents were kind enough to give me a 3-letter middle name. So if I had my last name and my spouse's, I've got the American alphabet and probably another alphabet. Like, it's just too many. So I'm good with just one.
Yeah. We don't need to hyphenate it. That's okay.
No. There would be enough room on the credit card.
Something would have to get chopped off there.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. And then I think also, like, the combining the 2 last names, that's where it gets a little hard, though, when you with your family tree, right? Because then what happens when you try to go back into your family tree and figure things out years later?
Yes. Sure. Yeah.
It's an interesting area that is evolving and changing. Dating now is very different than dating 50 years ago. But I guess, like, what would they say 50 years ago? They probably would have said, oh, dating now is very different than dating 50 years ago.
Very true. Very true. I think we're communicating more. We have much more information. You can investigate people a little bit, with a full name, you can find a lot of information on people, and it definitely has its advantages, but again, the values have really changed, and like you said, the fast paced, there's nothing wrong with, tapping the brakes, and you got to crawl before you walk.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think it's people have gotten so caught up with this swipe, 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 fast paced life, right? Where it's just like, oh, the next one, whatever. So they're not, like you said, you're not giving somebody a real shot, or
Mhm.
you're being too judgmental, maybe. I'm not you, I'm saying anybody in society,
I think I think there's an element of truth to that, but I also feel like if you know yourself and you know what you want, you shouldn't ignore the red flags. You know what I'm saying? And you shouldn't just kind of compromise. You know, like I mentioned before, I'm happy being with somebody, and I find happiness in single life, so I would never compromise who I am or what I want just to say I'm in relationship, and
Yeah.
I fear that some people, even though people are more independent, there is an element of codependency, maybe, because we want connection and we want romance and cuddles and snuggles or whatever it may be, so perhaps we don't always make the best decisions, and that could be a reason why 1 out of 2 divorces do fail, so I think you've got people who sometimes go too fast, or they're making poor choices for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. It's talk about what you're happy, you're content where you are, but you also would be probably content in or not content, happy in, I should say happy, happy in a relationship also. I've been, like single for a while, and I've always been looking for that relationship a little bit. I'm like, okay, come on, let's get the relationship going. Like, let's get the family, let's move and move, move. And this realization came to me the other day where I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been on this like fast paced, fast paced, fast paced thing. And I'm like, wait, shouldn't I just enjoy where I'm at right now in my life? Because my whole life, okay, I'm in high school. I can't wait to get to college. You're in college. You can't
Mhm.
wait to get working. You're this, you're that. You can't wait to be doing the next thing. Right.
Right.
And just to be present and be now and be enjoying what it is at the moment,
Hmm.
because it's probably going to change tomorrow. It's going to change the next day, whatever. It's going to change because change is inevitable.
That's the only thing
And
that's constant.
exactly, exactly. So I came to that realization, and it's so nice to hear that you're in that same spot right now too, where you're just enjoying this time right now in your life.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm a happy, positive person. And I think, kind of to speak to what you were saying, people, what's the quote? It's about the journey, not the destination, or, what the one is. And yeah, again, like, people want to get to the mountaintop, but they forget about the climb, and there's so much fruit in the climb. I don't really, not that I don't know. I don't live with regret, because even if it was an unpleasant experience, there's a lesson, and there's fruit in that, so I try to appreciate it for that at the least. So yeah, I don't think we should be fast forwarding. I think we should remain still and, at peace with where we are, and it's for a reason. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, society puts a lot of pressure on us, right? Like, this is where you should be at this time, and you need to be, why don't you have kids at this point in your life?
mhm.
It's a lot of pressure.
I
And
remember when I first joined Facebook, and I was in my goodness, like early 20s, I guess. I don't remember when its inception was, and I remember connecting with people from high school, and I was reviewing a friend's profile, and she was married, she had a house, and I think she had 3 kids already. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my, I'm really behind, and but it's her walk, it's her path, and mine's been different. And even in, and that's just not in, romance and family, but even like in career, I feel like I kind of peaked in my career, not peaked, but I got to a place where I wanted to be in my career, probably, in my early 30s, and I'm so grateful, where I am. And had I not gone through, what I did in my 20s, I wouldn't have the appreciation that I do now.
yeah, no, it's so true. It's so true. So talking about like the norms of whatever, the pressure of society and everything. It's very interesting with engagements now. I know, I don't know if you've been previously engaged or not, but have you? Let's start there really quick.
So I was in an 8-year relationship from the time I was 19 to 27. For 4 of those years, we did live together. Marriage and family was definitely a discussion, but it never came to be. It was a good relationship. We loved and cared about each other, but I was always 1 foot in and 1 foot out. So no, but I felt like I had a common law marriage for sure. I mean, it's 7 years and I made it to 8. So yeah. So never been engaged. No.
Yeah. When you said you had 1 foot in and 1 foot out, was that just you had this gut feeling that you didn't think it was right, or?
The foundation of our relationship did not start in the most ideal places. And I had a hard time, letting that go, basically. So that's a very vague way to say it. But
Yeah, you're not giving me much there, Victoria.
I did tell you Victoria didn't have secrets. So, and it's my story and that's fine. So we had worked together and he was married. So we started seeing each other and he had always suspected that his wife was cheating. However, 2 wrongs don't make a right. And I would say about like maybe 7 months into it, they both confessed to each other that they had been cheating on each other. They eventually got divorced. She remarried and we were together, like 7 years after that. So it was not like a tawdry affair for, a third of my life at that point, but it did start that way. So the foundation of our relationship, was a place that I was not at peace with. So I again, like I said, I had a hard time letting that go, even though everybody moved on and we loved each other and had a life. I was unsettled about it. So, and not because I had doubts about his fidelity to me. That was never an issue in our relationship. And a lot of people would say, oh, but you were the other woman, if he did it once, he'll do it again. I had no doubt about his love for me. So there were other bigger fish to fry in our relationship than his fidelity. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that and being brave to do that. That is not an easy thing. It really isn't. So thank you for doing that. And because, yeah, the other woman gets a lot of negative
Homewrecker.
yeah, words and negative words, as I guess is,
Of course. Well,
yeah, but I think that's so amazing that to share it, because it's a scary thing to share. And so thank you so much. That was, yeah, because it's and what you've learned from it and how you've grown and how he's grown, I'm sure.
mm-hmm.
And taking that, and I'm in awe of you. I think that's wonderful. Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of connection and humanity and people and God created us for this, for connection. And, there is a lot of courage in being vulnerable. And I feel like oftentimes, people can relate to you more than you think they can. And it's not something I've taken a billboard out in my life about, but anytime I have shared that, I am a little surprised. People are like, oh yeah, been there, done that. Or, oh, I know someone who, yeah, so this is not like a new, issue, this is infidelity has been around since the beginning of time, so it's unfortunate that it's part of my story. I mean, but it's my story and, it's my path. So.
Yeah. And you just grow from it and you move on, change. But that's very interesting that obviously you felt secure in the relationship because but the foundation of how it started, it just wasn't like settling with you. It wasn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, to add more detail to this juicy story, he was actually twice my age. So I was 19, he was 36, and he had 2 children. So you're talking about, I'm 19 years old, 20 years old, dealing with like a ready-made family already, and I've always been, wise beyond my years. And I think I did handle it with maturity, all things being considered, because I mean, I was a kid myself in a way, you know what I'm saying? And I have been in therapy and I love therapy. It's great. It's an hour about you. But I remember one therapist had said, she was telling me about Eric Erickson and theory on like the stages of life. And I don't know all of them, but basically there's identity and there's intimacy and yada, yada, yada. And I basically skipped the identity and went to intimacy. So when my ex and I broke up, which I was the one to initiate it, I had to have enough courage to break my own heart because, again, we loved each other, but I just could not allow myself to be fully happy with him. The 4 years that I was single in between the next relationship, I was, like balls to the wall. Like, I got a tattoo, I went skydiving, I was clubbing, I was reconnecting with my girlfriends, I was on a lot of dating sites, I was doing a lot of dating. This is when the blog kind of started. So, I was going through that identity stage, so, I kind of skipped around in the Eric Erickson, stages, but, there's a reason why, identity is so important, and knowing yourself, loving yourself, and then sharing that, because I couldn't give what I didn't have. And, I loved my ex deeply, but I didn't feel like I was loving him at my maximum capacity. And it didn't feel good to me. And I loved him enough to want more for him.
Yeah. Yeah. You couldn't give it to him, but you also need to give more to yourself too.
Right. And I had to forgive myself. So,
yeah. Which is that's a hard thing to do because you're the hardest person on yourself. Like I know, everybody critiques themselves more than anybody else in the world.
Yep, for sure. For sure. And I know my flaws, and I know my flaws before you even call me out on them. So
exactly. It's so easy to recognize this in yourself. But,
if you're self-aware, not in denial, because there's a lot of people who are.
That's very true. Yeah, no, I that's so interesting. The 7 steps you said, or 5 steps?
I don't know if there are 7. I'd have to look it up. I know I had before, but it's Eric Erickson, I guess, a very old psychologist, and basically stages of life. And again, my therapist mentioned identity and intimacy. So
I think that makes a lot of sense of relationships and different things, or why they work or why they fail, because you really have to have a relationship with yourself first, right? And you have to feel that. And I feel like in my 20s, I really was figuring out who I am. I'm like, am I this person? Do I like being this? How does this feel? Like, let me try this on. Let me,
Yes.
And like you said, you're like, oh, sorry.
No, you go.
Like clubbing and tattooing or whatever it is, but no. I think everybody is guilty of it at some point in their life, whether they go in the right order or the not right order. You have that moment in your life where you just want to experience things.
Right. And let's face it, I mean, 18, 19 years old is when you're going off to college, when you're, growing in your independence and your identity. You might be going away to university, and you're, again, put in that melting pot of everybody from everywhere. And, oh, why does, so-and-so act like this, or, say this or do this or talk like that, or, well, they grew up in the farm, or they grew up in the city, or, they're an only child, or, I mean, everybody has a story. And, so you're kind of figuring that out, because when you're in your world, it's all is what's around you, so it really does open you up. And I think that's when you realize, like you said, do I like this? Who am I? What do I want? So yeah, there's a lot to be said about, identity. So
yeah. And I think that helps make the marriage or the relationship or whatever it may be stronger.
Yes. I think the ideal relationship for me, and what I'm seeking, is someone who I can be like a strength and support to, and they can be that for me. Like, I want them to elevate me, not bring me down, and I want to build each other up and grow together, so, I just think that there's a lot of beauty in that, so.
Yeah, no, there really is. So let me tie this back into my engagement question that I was.
I'm sorry.
No, I love this. Are you kidding me? This is fabulous. So much just deep self-awareness and everything. And so much to learn, right? There's no guide on dating. Like, people have written guides, people have written things, but it's not like school where there's a curriculum. Okay, you're going to do this, you're going to whatever. You have 4 years of high school, 4 years of college.
Mhm.
You have that in your life. Dating, it's a whole nother like ball game, right?
Yes, yes, it sure is. That's a nice way to say it.
It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
quite interesting. So engagements I've noticed have been like longer now.
Mhm,
Like went back I'm gonna go back to the 50s or 50 years ago, whatever it is, engagements, are shorter. You date the guy for maybe a year or two, if that, probably a year tops.
mhm,
You get engaged, and your engagement would be pretty quickly, and then you get married. Now engagements are turning into 2 years, 3 years, at least a year, if not 2 to 3 years.
mhm.
I just met somebody the other day and they told me that their wedding is going to be, I think, in like 2023 or so. And I'm like, oh my gosh, but you're engaged. Like, don't you want to just like sign the papers? I don't know.
Mhm, mhm.
And so what are your thoughts on engagements and having them so long? I mean, I know obviously planning, but then a lot of friends say to me, oh, I plan my wedding in 6 months. Oh, and they're like, well, now I have nothing to do. Wait, what? Like now, won't you want to just like tie the knot then or whatever it is?
Well, I guess I would ask, and I think I might know the answer to this. I'm thinking the people who are having those long engagements are likely already living together.
Mhm.
So they kind of have the marriage without the papers. So, maybe they got stuck in comfort and, that could be the reason because I feel like if you're not living together and you are engaged, I would think that you would have a more eagerness to get married sooner. So, that's my theory. I certainly could be wrong because really what does it change other than the paper and a gold band on your ring and your last name? I mean, I'm not saying there aren't changes, but like if you're already living and doing life with somebody, then getting married, and that could be a reason why people don't get married also because they're living the like I was in an 8-year relationship. I mean, it's common law without the marriage basically. So, I think that could be a reason why they're maybe prolonging. And I also think that people, again, like society and women's independence and stuff like that, we are very career focused. We're very like, I want to accomplish XYZ before I get married, or I want to do yada yada. So, and I'm very type A OCD. So OCD, I say it's CDO because I have to alphabetize it. My
That's
spreadsheet
so
has a
fabulous.
spreadsheet. Yeah. So I'm definitely very planned, and I've tried to surrender because I know that man plans and God laughs. So, his plans are always better. We might not realize that in the thick of it, but I'm trying to surrender to that. So we might say, okay, well, I want to do XYZ before this, but God might have a different plan and it could fulfill a bigger purpose. So I don't think I'm alone in that kind of mentality, and I think that could be a reason why people are maybe prolonging it or delaying it. So just a theory.
Yeah, it always is interesting to me that people would say, oh, you're getting married, you're going for your bachelorette or bachelorette party. This is your last night before or whatever. Obviously, those nights, bachelor and bachelorette nights, used to be the night before the wedding, not usually like a month or 6 months before the wedding. But when that would happen, I would always like be very puzzled by this because, and I think you and I have similar views on this, that it was, once you start that, like right now, you and I are in our bachelorette party. Like
Right. Living it.
we're living the bachelorette party. And then, once we meet our person and it becomes that serious relationship, then the bachelorette party's over.
For
Bachelor,
sure.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're linked with somebody. You're no longer a bachelorette. You've not been a bachelorette. So yeah, the whole idea is kind of puzzling.
Yeah, it's a tradition that is no longer really serving us in a positive way.
Yeah, it's almost like useless. I mean, I don't know, but Well, and I would say, to kind of circle back for just a moment, like, I think where you and I are right now, I don't think we would probably engage in like a 7 or 8 year relationship. But like, I think that we're established now and we know who we are, we know what we want. So, not that we would rush into a marriage, but I don't know that we would probably engage in more than a year without engagement.
Yeah.
So I think, you have, when you're younger, you have more time to buy, and you're not, again, you're working toward your goals, you're establishing. Where we are now, like, we're ready to go, like, we're ready to, get on with it. We don't want to waste time, because time is precious, you can't buy it. We're getting older, every minute. So
Since this podcast started. Oh my gosh. Well, this has just been so much fun. Thank you for joining me today and talking about dating and these crazy things that are happening in our world
yes.
and just navigating them, and just discussing. It's so much fun to I love talking about relationships. I love talking about things. It was funny, actually. I'm going to just share this with you. I was at a networking thing and was talking to somebody, and he said to me, he's newly divorced and trying to figure out the apps. And this is, it came up in a fun way. But anyways, at one point he said, um, like, sorry, at one point I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I explain this whole story? But he said to me, he goes, I want a serious thing, but I don't want a serious thing. I just want a casual girl to do things with. And I'm like, well, that's a relationship. Sounds like you don't really know what you want. I said, do you want to just sleep around? It's whatever you want to do is fine. Just
Right.
be clear about what you want to do.
Sure.
And so I said, so he goes, well, I'm not getting much response, or not getting the response I kind of want. I said, okay, well, it sounds like you're not really clear either. So I said, so what are
Mm-hmm.
you saying? What are you messaging? And he goes, well, I'm saying like, hey, beautiful, how are you? Or like, how's your day going? And I'm like, well, right there, I can tell you it's not going to happen. This is my own advice to him. But I just said, it sounds to me that you want something very quick, casual, and just like an in and out. You're not looking for a long term or more connection type of thing. So I said, you need to start. And so I started giving him some like pitches of what he should open with, like open with a joke. I said, I said, you can use that joke on every single girl. It's okay. No one's ever going
They
to
won't
know
know.
except for you. Yeah. Which I'm sure everybody does on these dating, sites or whatever. But I said, you need to be clear on what you want. So if that's what you want, then here's how you're going to get that. If this is what you want, then you need to go this direction. But it's interesting. A lot of people are coming out of divorces and going on these apps and not knowing what they want, and then mixed signals for everybody.
Right, right. I think, and I remember, I think there was a time, I don't know if I'm there yet or there still or whatever, but I think there's something to be said about companionship. So maybe, and there again, with comfort, there's a comfort in knowing you have somebody to call to go to dinner with, or to go to that movie with, or just someone to like share the room with, so I don't know if that, in that example, that's what he's looking for, just like, companionship, but there, there's something, really nice about that, and if he was used to it, he was in a marriage, and, now he's alone, and, yeah, so who knows, but maybe that's what people are looking for too, just someone to entertain them. I don't know.
Well, I think as humans, we need relationships.
Oh
We
yeah.
need relationships to survive. You can't survive without a relationship. Doesn't matter what
Mhm.
kind it is. You have to have that human connection.
Yes.
And that's what we all look and strive for. I mean, and however we fulfill ourselves with that is
Hmm.
the other question. But
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you so much. This is
Thank
fabulous.
you.
I appreciate you just sharing everything and being on here. So
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
thank you.